Let's be honest, brutally honest, about something most people quietly carry but rarely speak of. You've been clutching something that has long stopped living. Maybe not a person, not an object, not even that poor plant on your windowsill that gave up months ago, yet you still water out of habit. No, I'm talking about something far more invisible, a ghost of a version of you that once worked, that once made sense, that once fit, a relationship that's more muscle memory than magic now, a dream that used to light you up but lately just weighs on you like a promise you no longer believe in, but keep because it cost you so much to build. You know exactly what I mean. That thing that makes your chest feel heavy when you think about it. The thing you keep convincing yourself to hold on to because releasing it would mean admitting something final. Admitting that maybe all those years, all that effort, all those sleepless nights and hopeful mornings weren't what you thought they were. And that's terrifying because letting go feels like betrayal. Betrayal of your own past self, betrayal of the struggle, betrayal of the identity you built around it. But here's the raw truth most people never say out loud. Holding on doesn't always mean loyalty. It doesn't always mean commitment. More often than not, it's fear. Fear camouflaged as dedication. Fear of not knowing who you'll be when that thing is gone. Fear of the blank page that follows the final chapter. Fear of disappointing the spectators who've watched you pour your life into something that no longer gives anything back. Fear of saying, maybe I was wrong about what I needed. And it's okay to be afraid. Letting go is terrifying because it asks you to trust something you can't yet see. It demands that you release your grip on what feels familiar, even if that familiarity is slowly suffocating you, and step into the open air of uncertainty. Every instinct screams against it because holding on used to mean survival. It's what kept you steady when the world was unpredictable, when control was the only comfort you had. But you're not that person anymore. The self that needed to cling to survive has grown. The armor that once protected you is now too heavy to carry. The strategies that once kept you safe are now keeping you small. And the longer you keep your fingers clenched around what's trying to dissolve, the more exhausted you become. Not from life, but from resistance. Think about the last time you tried to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeezed, the faster it slipped through your fingers. But when you relaxed, when you opened your palms just enough, some of it stayed. Not because you forced it to, but because it belonged there naturally. That's how life works too. What's meant for you doesn't demand your grip. It flows with you. Most people live in a constant state of tension. Teeth clenched when things go wrong. Shoulders locked tight when life doesn't follow the script. Hearts held hostage when love begins to shift shape. We brace ourselves for every change, every uncertainty, as if letting go would destroy us. But that resistance, that's what drains us. It's like an emotional traffic jam inside you. Nothing moves freely, everything stalls. You've felt it, that strange heaviness that no amount of rest fixes. That feeling that you're pushing against an invisible wall. You're trying so hard, working, hoping, fixing, but it feels like running on a treadmill with no destination. You keep forcing conversations that should have ended, forcing jobs that stopped feeding you years ago, forcing yourself to care about things that no longer make sense. And instead of realizing the friction is the message, you just push harder, thinking effort will earn clarity. But what if it's not effort that's needed? What if the friction is actually a whisper? Life telling you it's time to release what no longer fits? What if that draining job is clearing space for something that actually excites you? What if that relationship that feels like walking on eggshells is making room for someone who doesn't need you to shrink to feel comfortable beside them? What if the version of you've been trying so hard to preserve, the one everyone expects, the one who keeps performing the same script, is just a shell that's gotten too tight for who you are becoming? We've been taught that letting go is surrender, that it's weak, that it means giving up. But that's the greatest misunderstanding of all. Real letting go isn't passive. It's powerful. It's not about quitting. It's about choosing to stop feeding what's already dead. It's the decision to redirect your energy toward what's actually alive, what's actually growing. I once spoke to someone who'd been in the same job for 8 long years. They didn't love it. It didn't challenge them. It just existed. Every Monday was like walking into a cell they'd decorated with motivational quotes. They'd convinced themselves it was loyalty, that good people stick things out, that persistence is noble. But when we peeled back the layers, it wasn't loyalty holding them there. It was fear. Fear of starting over at 35. Fear of admitting that the stability they bragged about was actually their cage. And here's what's wild. They already knew. Every cell in their body screamed that it was time to go. Their breathing would change the moment they walked through those office doors. Their shoulders would tighten like armor. Their body knew long before their mind was willing to listen. Because knowing and doing are two different worlds. Knowing is mental. Doing is sacred. Doing is feeling the fear and moving anyway. Doing is disappointing the people who had plans for your life. Doing is saying, I love you, but I can't keep betraying myself to keep you comfortable. Your body has been whispering these truths for months, maybe years. The knot in your stomach when you picture your future looking exactly like your present. The restlessness that creeps in when you stay too long in familiar places. The tension that refuses to dissolve no matter how much you distract yourself. These aren't random. They're messengers. But we've forgotten how to listen. We silence our intuition with distractions. Another scroll, another drink, another excuse. We call it stress, burnout, anxiety. But often it's just truth trying to find its way to the surface. And life keeps knocking. Not loudly, not always dramatically, but persistently. Through the opportunity that scares you because it feels too right. Through the person who sees you in ways that both comfort and confront you. Through those quiet flashes of clarity when you're alone in your car, in the shower, or right before you fall asleep. Those are not coincidences. They're invitations. But if your hands are still full, if you're gripping tightly to what no longer belongs, you can't receive what's next. Life is patient, but it won't force itself on you. Opportunities pass to those who are open enough to say yes. We think letting go means losing something. But what if it actually means gaining everything? What if it's not about loss, but about space? About clearing the debris so what's waiting can finally reach you? Nature understands this instinctively. Trees don't cling to their leaves when autumn calls. Rivers don't reverse their flow because they're afraid of where they're going. Flowers don't refuse to bloom because last season's soil felt safer. Nature doesn't resist change. It collaborates with it. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. We turned endurance into virtue and surrender into shame. We began to equate holding on with strength and release, with failure. But in reality, life moves through those who let it. I've seen people hold on to friendships that expired years ago, still checking old messages, still replaying conversations, still hoping for reconciliation with someone who already turned the page. They analyze every memory for meaning, as if decoding the past will rewrite the ending. But it doesn't, because some connections are meant to teach, not to stay. They were classrooms, not homes. Yet we panic when they end. We make endings mean we weren't enough, so we chase. We shrink. We twist ourselves into quieter versions of who we are, hoping to be chosen again. And in that shrinking, we abandon our evolution. We trade authenticity for acceptance. We exchange our expansion for someone else's comfort. And the tragedy is, we think that's love, but it's not. It's fear pretending to be love. The same happens within us. We hold on to outdated identities. The person we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the achiever, the caretaker, the survivor. But those versions were built for old seasons. They got you here, yes, but they were never meant to take you further. Continuing to live from their limitations is like wearing clothes 3 sizes too small and wondering why you can't breathe. That exhaustion you feel deep in your bones, the kind sleep can't fix. That's the energy it takes to maintain an identity you've outgrown. It's your soul begging for room. It's the internal tug of war between expansion and familiarity. And right before everything changes, there's always that moment, that quiet choice point, where you have to decide, keep holding on to what's safe but suffocating, or trust the unknown enough to let go. That's where rebirth begins. When you finally loosen your grip, something incredible happens. Space appears. Not the hollow kind, but living, breathing space. Fertile space. The kind where new dreams can plant themselves, where the next version of you can finally stretch its limbs. But that space, that sacred gap, terrifies most people. so they fill it immediately. They rush to replace the relationship, to find a new job, to drown the silence in noise. They confuse movement with progress, but evolution requires the pause. It's in that in-between, that liminal moment where transformation brews. The cocoon isn't comfortable, but it's where wings form. What if you trusted that space instead of fearing it? What if you allowed yourself to exist inside the question instead of sprinting toward an answer? What if you believed that the same intelligence that made stars and oceans also knows how to rearrange your life if you just stop clinging long enough to let it? Because the people who learn to release with grace develop a kind of radiance. You can see it in their eyes, in their posture, in their presence. They don't try to impress, they just are. They're lighter, not because life is easier, but because they've stopped dragging corpses of old chapters behind them. They don't perform anymore, they embody. They don't beg life to stay. They trust it to return in better form. They move differently, slower, freer, more deliberate. And in that ease, the world begins to rearrange itself around them. Doors that were once locked open effortlessly. People who once overlooked them start to notice. Opportunities that once felt unreachable suddenly land in their lap. Not because the external world shifted, but because they did. They stopped vibrating at the frequency of fear and started resonating with trust. That's not surrender. That's alignment. That's the difference between living by force and living by flow. Letting go isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's the soul saying, I'm done pretending this still fits. So I'll ask you, what are you still gripping that's quietly begging to be released? What truth have you been avoiding because it threatens the comfort of what you know? What part of your identity feels more like a cage than a home? Because whatever it is, it's time. Not next month, not when you feel ready. Now, life is already moving. The tide has already shifted. And the moment you stop resisting it, you'll realize it was never trying to drown you. It was trying to carry you somewhere new. Take a breath. Feel your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Let the weight fall away, piece by piece. You don't have to force the release. You just have to stop clinging so tightly. Life will handle the rest. The next chapter is waiting. And it's not just better. It's truer. It's freer. It's you. Finally unfiltered. Finally aligned. Finally alive.